Sports Park, Chicago. Jon Zaghloul and we are back in ready for today's special guest. He's a seven-time All-Star, current Baseball Hall of Fame candidate, and the head baseball coach at the Miller School. Please welcome Billy Wagner to the program. Billy, great to have you on. How are you?
Great, John. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Great to have you back with us. How was coaching so far this past season, first off?
Well, going well. Every year's a new year in high school. Some kids, you never know what you're going to get. You deal with you deal with more issues today than you did, I believe, when I was in high school. So it's been great. Love the kids and enjoying the experience.
How receptive have they been to really learning the game of baseball, learning the fundamentals?
Well, the kids that I've been very fortunate to coach just love baseball. They love the opportunity to be out there every day. I have a hard time getting them off the field. So I mean, they're very coachable, which is, a coach's dream. And so, it's just making sure they understand how to get rest along with that, take days off and stuff like that, because these kids today are definitely under the scrutiny of social media a whole lot more than I ever was. So dealing with that and helping them to survive that has been difficult at times.
How do you help them to deal with that situation?
Well, to really talk to them about understanding that the game is tough, and that when you look on social media, that you have to put it into perspective, and that you have to evaluate yourself for yourself, not, the 2026 kid who's getting recruited by a major Power 5 school, who's in the 8th grade. You can't worry about those things, and you can only control the things that you're able to control. And it goes back to your faith. I mean, I can't control things that are out of my hands. So, being able to kind of put it into that perspective has been good. Giving them pretty much a workload that keeps them as far away from, seeing what everybody else is, how they're being evaluated, and make them evaluate themselves and push hard and trust the people that are around them.
How does your story in recruitment help them too? Because you weren't a big time guy. Nobody was really around you, but obviously you turned it into a big major league career.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I'm considered old now. And so, the parents always understand the game. And, and I have kids, something we do now is we read, we're in the midst of reading 5 books as a team. And so each kid has a couple chapters they have to read certain books. And so we pass it around. And so Mondays and Thursdays, we before our practice starts, we go out and they have to read their 2 chapter, or kind of give, a small version of their 2 chapters and what it means to them and how it affects them. And, a lot of it's on the mental training and work ethic and the evaluation of their self, because they're so critical of themselves. And, it's good that once they kind of go through this, they see and they talk to their teammates out loud, they understand that they're all in this together. And so it's not as big of a concern. They all understand that they've got to work hard. They understand that the colleges are it's tough. Power 5 schools to get into, look for a certain type of player, and and it's okay if you're not, and allowing them to understand that it's okay has been part of why we read these books, and we create a team camaraderie that's not just based on, hey, get in the weight room, in which it's about dealing with the pressures of the everyday. We practice every day. We have some type of lift and conditioning every day right now with individuals, but it's helping them to ease their way into the next step. But it's not easy. I tell you, I don't know how a lot of these kids do. I don't know how we would have done it back then if people would have been able to seen how other kids were doing it and the pressure of getting into college. Because the pressure of getting into college when I was there was about grades. It was totally about grades. It wasn't necessarily about your South Carolina wasn't going to hear about Billy Wagner. I mean, I didn't get that type of attention until I actually went into Ferrum and got to Cape Cod, and that's when the LSUs and the Floridas and the Pepperdines and schools like that started going, hey, why don't you come here? And so, now they, all the good things that they go through. It makes it very tough for these kids to have self-evaluation because everybody wants them to come to these camps, and so they go to these camps and they evaluate them so they can get their money, and then they it's just a falsehood that they preach to them, and these poor kids just don't understand how to evaluate themselves, and then they get down, and there's a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety on these kids, and suicide rate in baseball, in high school baseball, has went up substantially, and these colleges and the NCAA and they're not making it easier on this, and social media really has played a major role in how this is affecting these kids and what they expect.
What do you think the solution would be to all this?
Well, I mean, travel ball is a great tool, but it's also a necessary evil because it gets all these kids out in front of people. But I mean, the recruiting age should be different. We shouldn't be trying to recruit an 8th grader who is immature, can't drive, can't make a decision. Parents shouldn't be allowing a 14 and 15-year-old to make a decision on their future to a college when they they're not paying bills and they're not driving. So, I want kids to grow up and have some type of life, but they need to understand that we need to enjoy the game. You can't really blame the college coaches for the process because the process is what it is. But I think the situation of handing out all these scholarships and then having the ability to, decommit and stuff, there needs to be a longer grace period. There needs to be a period that you can't commit kids, or really talk to these kids until a later date. So everybody's in the same boat, and we can have these tournaments, you can stuff, but it's made it very difficult. So everybody thinks of the scholarship and stuff like that. And, it's been a tough road. I don't know if there's a perfect way to change it or, but I think the NCAA should probably look into it a little bit better and helping the college coaches and the recruiting coordinators and how it's affecting the kids of high school. The portal's not helped the high school kids now because now the high school kid is behind a JUCO kid. Not that, and most the Power 5 schools will tell you that they would much rather coach a JUCO kid that's already been through the wars and, that's about winning than the development. So, it's a difficult road for these kids right now who are pushing for this, for these types of scholarships and desire. And, unfortunately, we keep telling them, and I shouldn't say unfortunately, what we fortunately keep telling them is that you want to go play baseball, go play where you're wanted. And, D3s, D2s, JUCOs, those are gold mines for these kids who aren't really understanding that. And, as much as, D1 is a very attractive and super place, you go into a D1, you better have a terminology and adjustment process that is, already built in. You're not going to be able to go into these places. It's like going into minor leagues. It's a workforce situation, and if you're not productive, you don't get development because they've got people in other places. They can just they'll just get somebody the next year, and so the development at that point is very difficult, and it's at a higher level, for these players. And if you're not at that point, for Billy Wagner could have went to a D1 school out of high school because I wasn't ready for that. I could have made the adjustments. I was talented, but couldn't make adjustments. Coaches would have been so frustrated with me. And so, and I think a lot of these kids, don't understand that. They love the D1, but then they go there and they're not ready to play. I mean, you can look 6'3", be 220, and you can be the greatest camp kid in the world, but when it steps on the field and rubber meets the road, if you can't do what needs to be done to win, then you're not going to play. And unfortunately, they get mad, they get upset, they transfer, they go to these things, and to some that's been a great tool, but for the high school kid, it's been very difficult because they're not getting what they want. We go to the PBRs, the perfect game events down in Florida, down in Georgia and stuff, and we're seeing that there's not quite as many recruiters down there as there used to be. I mean, you're looking at, because they've already the JUCO and the portals have made a big difference for them. So, you do still see the 2026. I saw one the other day, 2027 ranking. I mean, you're ranking a 27. I mean, I heard a parent on a talk about, this is their first year in doing this travel ball, and he found out that his son, who's a 2027, is ranked number 1. He goes, I don't even know what that means. He goes, I really don't think he's very good at this point. And it's funny to hear that, because I mean, how do you rank and how do you do these things, when there's no maturity to it? I mean, it's a scary process right now for these kids.
And it sounds like you could even be losing out on potential major league talent. I mean, in your case, there weren't big rankings back then, and you even said yourself you wouldn't be ready for the D1 level. So this system could hurt kids who may have major league talent later, but just aren't ready at the moment to go D1 or go to a big school.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the way you pass the initial eye test is how big you are, your physicality, and your talent at that point. I mean, there's kids today throwing 90 plus in 8th and 9th grade, that are monsters, that are very talented. What if that's as far as it goes? How hard are we going to throw or expect these kids to throw without injury? And I mean, we can blame, training and playing one sport and doing this, but, that is pretty much the way it is set up. I mean, I hear college coaches all the time talk about how they love the two-sport athlete. Well, we all love the two-sport athlete. Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Brian Jordan, those guys were awesome. But the fact is, not many of those guys today are going to walk in and play at a D1 level because they don't have the reps. And you can't be a very good high school player and stuff if you're not getting reps and expect to go there, because in high school you're going to 7-on-7s. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as everybody expects it to be, and playing basketball and having all these multiple sports, because you just don't have the time. You don't have the reps to really always do that. Now, there are exceptions. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. There are always going to have guys who are just super talented in that high school area, can go do that. I played football and baseball in high school. We all did these things, but I mean, it doesn't always translate to just being a good athlete. And you can't always just get a good athlete. You got to get somebody that has, an IQ, knows how to make adjustments, and just can't live on talent. You can beat talent through just having a better work ethic, and because it's always been proven that way.
How did you balance playing football and baseball?
Well, I didn't have social media to worry about. I didn't have, my competition was the guys that I was playing against and the guys in my locker room. I competed against my cousin, who was a year older than me or 2 years older than me. And, I wanted to be better than him. And so, I wanted to be these guys. I didn't know what, Tennessee was doing. I didn't know what Georgia, I didn't know that. I didn't have to worry about that. But I mean, that's the difference in today's game. And don't get me wrong, it has helped a ton of kids. It's made a big difference with the scale of, in which they've been able to be seen, exposure wise. But it's also, I mean, when you have such a short time to see a kid, it's really easy to mark that kid off as much as put that kid on that list. And I mean, you have a bad day, man, a lot of people, don't see that. I mean, they don't see, the behind the scenes. Plus, I mean, you can have a good day. And I tell you, I coached a kid when I was younger. We went down to Georgia. And before we got to Georgia, he was like 0 for 18, had not hit a ball, had not done well at all. Very talented, great player. And he went down there and ended up going something like 12 for 16, hit 3 home runs. I mean, it just right place, right time. But after that, didn't do anything else. Well, he ended up getting a D1 offer and going to play D1 baseball. Never played because it didn't translate. He played football, he played basketball, didn't have the reps. All these things happen, and it comes back to he's a great athlete, but what am I looking for? And, and I know everybody, I guarantee anybody hears this is like, well, we want to be well-rounded. Well, I would love to be well-rounded. as long as we cut out all these tournaments that some of these kids get to go to and some that don't, and the 7-on-7s, and it doesn't work like it used to, and there's a point where a kid has to make a decision. Is it going to specialize? And you have to be all in. And unfortunately, when you say all in, there's a point where maybe that D1 doesn't work out. And are you willing to play at a small D3 school and do well and make your name and dominate that league so that you get the more levels? That is possible. There's a lot of, I was watching the Arizona Fall League because my son plays in there. And in the championship game, the pitcher for his team went to Randolph-Macon, a Division III team. The shortstop for the visiting team played for the Reds, and he came from Randolph-Macon, a Division III school. I mean, there's 2 Division III players in the same game in pros, so you can get to the pros, to the big leagues by going that route. You got to trust the process, and and it's not, there's a lot of kids that play D1 that don't go pro, and that's and it's just hard. It's so hard to sit there because I know that there's a lot of different ways to get there. I know that it seems like I'm beating on the D1, but it's just it's really my oldest son played D1, my middle son plays D1. But it's really about having an adjustment and being in the right system that fits you. And so, that's what I wish kids could understand. It's about what fits you, not what bells and whistles and what I'm going to wear and what I'm going to look like. It's, I want to win a championship. And people don't know how awesome that is to win a championship. I missed out on a championship in college, missed out in pro ball. But knowing that it's so close and seeing the excitement of others, that's what you're playing for. And when you learn to play for championships and not numbers, you are so much more. It's a much more enjoyable game. It's a lot more. There's a better memory. It's not a job as much as it seems to be.
How did you feel that you never won a championship yourself?
Well, it stinks. I won't lie. I always look back and wish there was so many things I wish I could have done better. Or I think every athlete who hasn't won or got close, feels the same way. I mean, we want to be able to win that championship. I mean, there's nothing greater. And I mean, whether I would take a championship over the Hall of Fame in a heartbeat, because winning is everything. That's why you play the game. There's no reason to play a game that has a scoreboard if you're not trying to win. I mean, and that's just how we were brought up. Winning was the whole goal. It wasn't how did you do it. It was doing it. And so, and that's what I like. That's why I like competing. I mean, there was, that was the end goal. You could have a bad game, bad day, but if you looked up there and you won, hey, that was the goal. You got tomorrow to play. So that's, baseball. That's what baseball brings to my life and to a lot of these kids, is because it has a lot of games you can play and you can play it every day. You may not be able to pitch every day, but you'll be able to play more games. I think that gives you the opportunity to be able to, have a bad game like life, have a bad week in life, and then bounce back. I mean, that's how life is. That's life in a nutshell. I mean, ups and downs.
How did you bounce back as a closer, like in the major leagues, when you had a blown save or a bad appearance? How did you block that out and come back the next day and pitch?
Well, the biggest thing was I had managers early that gave me the opportunity. You've got to have people around you that are willing to take that chance on and give you an opportunity. But within that opportunity, you've got to be successful enough that they're willing to go, okay, I can give him another chance because he's, really close to figuring this out. And, Larry Dierker was huge for me. If Larry Dierker doesn't give me the opportunity to close and I'm a starter, I'm probably out of the league way earlier. I didn't have starting stuff. I had a power arm. I had good stuff, but I mean, it wasn't a repeatable thing. I didn't have 3 super pitches. I didn't, it was just but I could go out there and go 2 innings and really change the game. I could go through the lineup points and change the game. It was where, but Larry Dierker gave me the opportunity to fail. and I had some bad week. I'd have a bad week, and he kept me out there, or, you know, he let me learn that role. And also, I had great teams that picked me up. If I blew a save, they won the game, and so that was something that allowed me to keep going out there. You know, yeah, going back to the winning was the most important thing. And the thing about being a closer that I loved the most was the ability to go out every day and possibly play and compete. And so, you have a bad day, you have a bad series, you could be right back out there. And that was the fun part of the game for me. And you just learn through time and the experience that, you're going to have those bad days. And I mean, so many times, you look at my career, or these guys who've had these great careers, how many stretches where you have 30, 35 outings where you don't give up a run, or you don't give up, or you get a save. And then, you're going to have a bad week, and you're going to have a bad series. And when that happens, what automatically ends up happening is everybody goes, "Oh, he's not very good. He's really struggled." But the 35, but that's how the game is. And so you learn that through the experience of failing. I mean, Mariano, there's no closers that went through there that didn't have a bad series, have a bad week, have situations to fall back on and know, well, I've been there, done that. That's, and the luxury for the closers that have had longevity is they've had guys who picked them up. And, a closer to pick up a win is usually not a good thing. A reliever getting a win is not a good thing. But, if you're able to get out there and have a winning record at the end of your career as a reliever, your team has picked you up. And so being part of a good team makes a good closer too. And so they pick each other up.
Billy Wagner here on Sports Talk Chicago. Billy, what do you make your Hall of Fame case?
I don't know. You're really asking me something of me that I'm not comfortable with, because, my thought of Hall of Fame is all based on numbers. And so I can't do nothing about the numbers that are out there. It's I don't know how to build my case when the case is based on numbers. And if my numbers are what everybody talks about, it becomes, I really don't know where that should, how to take that thing. I don't want to say that it's a personal thing, because you really can't say that I wasn't good if my numbers are what they are. It's not an unbiased vote if you're voting and saying that it's, numbers. It's not. It's obviously, it's a like, not like, dislike. The only thing that I can say is I've always been accountable for good, bad, and difference. As I took responsibility for my actions, I, was always there for my locker to present the good and the bad with the interviews. But numbers wise, there's no case to be made for the Hall of Fame if we're going to talk about numbers. If you want to talk about my sainthood and if I should be in there because of how politically correct I was all the time in an interview, or what I did, then I'm sure I shouldn't be in there. But I don't think there was ever anyone that didn't enjoy standing in my locker waiting for an interview, because I was always there giving one. And whether you liked it or not, I was there. And, I learned that from Xavier Hernandez, who pretty much from the day I stepped into the big leagues made sure that I stood there, good, bad, and whatever. And if I gave up a game-winning home run, I was there. If I got a save, then I was there. It was, it's just the way it was. So I don't know what case to make for the Hall of Fame, because I think the case has already been made when I retired. And, I'm not sure what to say.
Why do you think you're not in yet? Do you think your interactions with the media have hurt your candidacy?
Well, I don't get very many West Coast votes, I believe. I think that's not, and that might be just because they didn't see me very much. I don't know. And, I really don't know. There's New York voters or guys who don't vote for me. There's, whether you like me or you don't like me, the numbers support what's going on. I know that there's a lot to say that relievers and closers shouldn't be in, and and things like that. But I also see the same articles that they've written when the team blows a save and how that bullpen and that closer and stuff. So I mean, I think it's I think it's kind of wishy washy at times how we're viewed. Um, you know, I would have I don't think the standards are the same for every person. I know that there's rumors spread about each player that are untrue that gets to the media, but most of the media I've never talked to. I don't know most of the people that vote today. I don't know if they know me. I don't know if they saw me pitch. I don't know if they the older guys or whatever. I mean, but I don't know what the particular reason is, but we all know that it's not the numbers.
I mean, some of your numbers are better than Trevor Hoffman and even Mariano Rivera on a rate basis. Some of your peers, both guys in the Hall of Fame. What's your reaction to that?
Well, their numbers speak volumes. Their numbers, right? I mean, I don't think any of us sit there and go, well, Mariano's really not that good. I don't think there's anybody quite that stupid, right? I think that what's amazing is that, Trevor didn't get really the response that he should have gotten. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest ever to play. And I mean, no championships, but, very successful. I mean, I'm not sure where we look for those things. I mean, one of my close friends, John Franco. I mean, I think Big Daddy. I mean, you look at Big Daddy. It took him forever to get in there. And I mean, unfortunately, it's just a path that some of us have to go through. Dale Murphy. Hopefully, Dale will get in there this year. I mean, Fred McGriff. I mean, there are so many guys that have supporting numbers to get in there, and some of us just don't get viewed the same way as others. And unfortunately, it's not an unbiased thing. It's a very biased report on people.
Why do you think that is? Why is there so much bias? Why do guys not get viewed fairly, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're not. I didn't play on the West Coast as much. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't. I wasn't very self-promoting. I don't know. I wasn't a very. I don't know. I just think there's guys. I mean, there's just certain guys that people are attracted to. I mean, but regardless of whether you like somebody or you didn't like them personally, it's a numbers game that you're dealing with. And so unfortunately, I've always tried to be accountable and accessible to every interview. And I don't think there's ever a guy who could come to me and go, well, you weren't very accessible to me, because I was at my locker every day. And, you may not have liked what I had to say, but I was there to say it. And, my numbers speak, about my talent, what I did on the game, which you're supposed to be, critiqued on, and that's the unbiased view. I mean, some days you don't have a good day, but it's, I know there's a lot of times that I didn't play well in certain places, but the whole beats the few. And so, who knows? I mean, this game is, it's changed so much. I don't know if, when my time's over, I don't know if there's a closer to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if they'll ever be viewed. I mean, Kenley Jackson, who's awesome, guys like that. I mean, the middle relievers. I mean, there's so many of those guys that should be in the Hall of Fame. So I mean, maybe with DHs now being considered position, closers will be considered position and be looked at a little bit different. So I just don't know. I don't know where that goes. You guys know, you've probably heard from more guys about why I shouldn't be in than I should. So I don't know.
The writers that I've had on mostly have told me you deserve to be in. And I always mention that I've had you on my program. We've talked about this at length. They always say you do, yet the numbers for some reason just don't translate based on voting. Do you think at some point you will get, though, to 75%? You got 3 years left on your ballot.
Honestly, I don't. I don't see that being a way in. I don't think that I think I'll be close, but I don't think I'll get in. Hopefully, I'll get on that veterans committee or something like that. Be fortunate for that. But I mean, I've there's no matter how you get in, and it's awesome. I think you know I, it's awesome to hear my peers talk about me. That's what I like, because those were the ones in the trenches. Those are the guys you battled every day. I love hearing a Nolan Ryan say that I had the best fastball he'd ever seen. I love hearing Derek Jeter sit there and talk about how hard it was to face me. I love hearing those things, because those are the guys who, at the end of the day, whether you make the Hall of Fame or not, are the guys that you respect. I mean, I have a lot of great memories about the guys who were very difficult for me, and we enjoyed that battle. And the situations, the towns, the being in Philadelphia, and immature time for myself, and going to New York and battling through something I'd never been through, and learning from it. And, playing for a Bobby Cox, those are memories, and knowing what Chipper Jones and those guys in that dugout and that locker room knew what I brought every day. There wasn't a day that I didn't come prepared, ready to compete every day. And so those guys know what I'm about. They know how hard I've worked. They know in their minds whether they like me or not, deserve or don't deserve. So, and that's who we can really, I have to take in and think a little bit more. That's what I played for anyway.
What would it mean to you to get in?
Well, I mean, at this point, I mean, we all play, there's a point in your career where you start to kind of see that there's a possibility that you could be recognized in a facet that's, almost unthinkable. I mean, when you think about it as a kid and you're looking back and you've seen guys like Nolan, you've seen guys like, Robin Yount, guys that Paul Molitors, the guys that have put in their time, the Mike Schmidts, those guys, when you sit back and see those guys, and then you see the guys that you play with, like Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez and Tom Glav, and that you pitched behind, you see that, you start to kind of, it's one of those, you can't help but, feel that and get excited about that. But I mean, I think this time of the year is always the toughest, because there's nothing I can really do anymore, right? And so you can preach your case, but I can't change my stats, and I can't go back and repitch a game, and I can't change minds by how I played. So the excitement is still there. It's always it's a harsh reality when you, and social media, to go out there and you start reading, how you shouldn't be in there, and these things. And unfortunately, that's part of the business. But, it's a fun time. It's a scary time, as far as, I'm sure in 3 years, I'm going to be heartbroken that, it didn't happen. But I also know that, I've been very lucky and very fortunate to be on the ballot this long, to have made jumps, to have a lot of support that I didn't know that I had. And just the outpouring of people when I've made it to games. It just, so I'm very blessed in a lot of ways to know that, that I spent a good career, and I've had a good run. And, there's no doubt that I've practiced, somewhat of a Hall of Fame speech. I think I've said that before. I mean, we all have, because that's, to stand up there and talk about the game that you've loved and been passionate about for your whole life, and the sacrifice and commitment you've made to this game, and for it to give back in that way would be an honor that I only few know. And so to be able to stand up there with my idols and my heroes, it would be something as an individual that I don't think you can mark in any other way.
Billy, before we finish up today, one more question for you. How's your faith impacted not just your baseball career, but also your life?
Well, I'm 5'10". I was 100 and nothing. I came from a Division III school. I came from a broken home. There's not much upside looking at me when I first started out. The only person that believed in me was my mom, my and my Lord. He was the only one that understood what was going to be ahead of me. And so when, you know, he put me on that path, and he gave me the strength to endure some of the things that were setbacks for others. He allowed me to jump I went from being a right-hander to a left-hander. I think those are things that I've been blessed with, because it's not something I had to have faith in. It was something that God showed me right away, and so my faith was proven by what he allowed me to do. And so to go out and say, hey, there's 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds of nothing, is going to go out there and pitch on a huge pedestal, and he's going to go compete against the best, shows that anything's possible. And he gave me that opportunity so that I would be a light to a high school kid who needs to know that it's possible. And that for the kid who comes through the broken home, to the kid that has all these multiple things that go on in their life, that God is the path, he is the future, he is what's going to give you, he is going to open the doors when the windows are closed, or open the windows when the doors are closed. He is the only light and path to get you to where you want to be. I was blessed, and he's helped me use my pedestal with young kids. And whether I make the Hall of Fame or whether I don't, I've been so blessed so many times that I deserve nothing, and am so blessed to have his grace on my life with my family, my kids, that it's easier for me to sit there and go and look at the bigger picture than the small window of saying that people view me in a certain way. I know my God loves me, and that he has blessed me with more things than I ever deserve.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for joining me. It is always a pleasure to talk with you. Best wishes for this Hall of Fame circuit. We got to catch up again, and best wishes as well, coaching for sure this season.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks for having me.